From the Oklahoman newsroom in downtown Oklahoma City, this is an OSU men's basketball update. I'm Darnell Mayberry, joined via telephone by OSU beat writer John Helsley, who has some breaking news for us. Oklahoma State has hired its next basketball coach, Mike Boynton, who's an assistant under Brad Underwood before he left to go to Illinois. John, what can you tell us about Coach Boynton?
You know, Darnell, Mike Boynton is a young coach, 35 years old, was on Brad Underwood's staff at Stephen F. Austin, played basketball at South Carolina, was an outstanding player there. He ranks fourth all-time in career games and was an all-SEC player, a point guard. I didn't get to know him a lot this year. He's kind of a quiet guy, at least when I was around practices, but I know everybody was always impressed with him, heard good things about him. Coach Juwan Evans specifically as a point guard this season, and seems to be a guy that's very well liked among players.
John, we're less than a week removed since Brad Underwood made the move to Illinois. Earlier this week, Mike Holder, the athletic director at Oklahoma State, hired Eddie Folger as a consultant. We thought this was going to be more of a national search, and here we are, less than a week removed from Brad Underwood's decision, and they've arrived at Mike Boynton. How did Mike Holder arrive here so fast?
Excellent question, and haven't been able to talk to Mike Holder about that yet. But keep in mind, it took them 3 days last year when Travis Ford was fired. Now, of course, then they were able to really focus on who they were looking for. They knew they were going to make the move with Travis Ford. But, they had a group of 5 men in yesterday, Thursday, for interviews in Stillwater. I'm told that Mike Boynton knocked it out of the park, really impressed the Mike Holder and his group of it was also in the room doing the interviews. The players that are currently on the team went to bat for him before the interview, all singing his praises, and I think probably suggesting that they would stick around with him. And so he had some backing. And, if he went in that interview and knocked it out of the park, I think maybe Mike Holder just felt like, hey, this is the guy right here. Why do we need to search any further?
Now, John, you've had a chance to talk to a couple of former players. What are they saying about this hire?
Talked to Phil Forte just a little while ago. He loves the hire. He enjoyed being around Mike Boynton this season. He likes the fact that it'll be an easy transition as these guys, Boynton and Underwood, pretty much run the same system. He again echoed that he very well liked the guy that's sort of a player's coach. He thought it was a good move. He brought up that sometimes an assistant coach just needs an opportunity, and he thinks that Mike Boynton will be a good head coach.
Other positives to this move, John, what can you tell us about those? Maybe some recruiting efforts, things like that, keeping guys who are already here, or perhaps keeping guys who are committed for next year's class.
Yeah, okay. So we mentioned the fact that shouldn't be a radical change of systems, right? They're probably going to run the same thing that Brad Underwood ran. We mentioned that the players like him. I would expect most, if not all, of the guys on this team to return, with the possible exception of Juwan Evans. I think Juwan is focused on going to the NBA and has been for some time. Jeffrey Carroll put his name into the NBA draft, but left himself the opportunity to come back. I would expect Jeff to come back. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be high enough projection to go ahead and jump into the draft full bore. You've got a lot of consistency now in the program. You're not going to, like I said, you're not going to have to change the system. You're not going to have to change the message. This is a deal that the team can be all in on. The big key now for Mike Boynton and whoever's on his staff will be to go secure the guys they have committed. They have a good recruiting class with a couple of players out of Florida, another one out of Michigan. They need to go and secure those guys, bring them in, show them that nothing's going to be different. The head coach has changed, but the system's the same. The school that they committed to is the same. And if they can bring those guys in, they have a chance to be a good team next year.
Now, John, there was some disappointment because of the lack of name recognition of Mike Boynton. And obviously, a lot of fans in the OSU community wanted one of their own, Doug Gottlieb. There was some disappointment that they didn't bring Doug home as the social media push wanted. What can you tell us about why Mike Holder made the decision for the second consecutive season, to not go with Doug Gottlieb?
I think one of the consistent things involved with Doug and Mike is going to be obviously the lack of coaching experience at any level. That was a big factor a year ago when they hired Underwood, and Doug didn't even get an interview. This year he got an interview, but I was told by some within the program that the other factor, those things still had not changed. And, it would have been a risk, and, some might say Mike Boynton's a risk. He's never been a head coach before. I just think that Mike Holder probably felt like they've got a lot more data on Mike Boynton. He's been a coach. He's been around it, the scouting aspect of it, the recruiting aspect of it. I know there's a lot of Cowboy fans out there that are disappointed. Doug's a popular figure around OSU. He's a great speaker. He's a guy that gets you fired up, so I can understand the disappointment. But I think at the end of the day, Mike Holder went with the safer pick.
All right. Thanks so much, John. For the best Oklahoma State coverage and continuing coverage of Mike Boynton's hire, stay with newsok.com and make sure to read us every day in the Oklahoman.